from the consultants. And I will call the meeting to order. Do you think the cable guy is, where'd he go? Does he think he's ready?
He's in the right spot upstairs.
Okay. All right. If we think the cable guy is set, then we will call the meeting to order. We'll start down on my right, and if the folks up here will introduce yourself for the record.
Brian Cooper.
Charlene Douglas, citizen.
Joseph Murphy, Director of Planning.
Josh Markham, City Attorney's Office.
Woody Gantina, City Commissioner.
Jim Allison.
Meg Truba, Director of Economic Development.
And Mike Fournier, Mayor. And I'm Gary Casada, the chairperson. All right, so the order of business today of this special meeting is to hear the presentations of the consultants. Mr. Murphy, would you just give us a quick introduction here?
Sure, we have two firms to interview tonight. The second one will occur at 6, so we'll keep that in mind, and I'll continue to refresh your memory and keep you informed of the time constraints. But we have invited first for ZoneCo, the president. We've identified a time of about 35 or 40 minutes at the most for them to do presentation. They're free to summarize that faster or a little bit longer, but we'll leave some time for questions at the end. So I would ask that during their presentation that you think of all your thoughts and hold them until the end. I think that'd probably be the most productive. If they feel otherwise, they can let us know, but I think that might be more productive to allow them to present everything that they want to you and then to allow for questions. So with that, I'll stop talking so they can.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Murphy about the process here? All right, well, hearing none, I'm going to call up ZoneCo from Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm going to ask you to introduce your team and proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission. My name is Sean Suter, and I am CEO and founder of ZoneCo. And as the name implies, we write zoning codes. And so, yeah, so kind of creative. With me is a blockbuster team, I would say, that we put together specifically for this project and for you. And I'm very pleased to have them with me tonight. And if you want, just go down from Jocelyn from right to left and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Jocelyn Gibson. I'm the principal of ZoneCo.
My name is Marcus King. I'm an architect, urban designer from Pure Architects here based in Michigan.
I'm Wayne Childs with General Code, Director of Technical Solutions.
Brad Stritter from Sincar Consulting and a resident of Beverly Hills.
Wayne B.A., attorney with Fahey, Schultz, Berzik & Rhodes.
Mike Cousins, GIS practice leader and partner at OHM Advisors.
5 of the members of this team live right here in Greater Detroit and work here in Greater Detroit. So raise your hands if you're a Detroit or Southeast Michigan person. Yes, where are you?
I'm close.
Okay, close by, all right. So if I could turn on my presentation.
We'll have the cable channel show that side monitor in just a moment. They'll switch over to it.
And I can see it down here?
You should be once they switch over.
Okay.
So we're looking to have them display the side table monitor, which is your presentation.
Yeah, suspenseful. All right. I can see it over here. Okay, very good. Well, we first want to thank you very much for shortlisting us and having us here tonight to talk to you about our team and your project, most importantly, and how we can successfully get you across the goal line for a new zoning code. That's the goal here. You just completed your comprehensive plan not so long ago. Your zoning code is 15, 20 years old or so. Obviously, the zoning code is the implementation of your comprehensive planning efforts. The city is very different than it was 15 or 20 years ago. I will say that the reason we brought a team to you that has both national, regional, and local experience, knowledge, and is located both regionally and locally is because this is a really tough project you're about to undertake. This is one of the most challenging things a city planning staff can do besides comp planning, and that is rewriting the zoning code. That's why cities don't do it that often. Why I say it's important that we brought a team that's familiar to you is because having a familiar group of people along for this ride, this journey, I think is important. I worked on leading and helping to lead the Cincinnati Form-Based Code project when I was chief counsel for land use and planning at the city of Cincinnati over a decade ago. We had consultants from all over the country. We wrangled 7 of them. That was not an easy project. I can tell you, having local people on the ground who are familiar with your residents, how they think, how they act, their thoughts and ideas, and how they react, I think is really important. Also, having a team that is familiar with the laws of the state, the customs of the region, and your community. We have people here who have worked in your community. Most of the team actually is currently under contract with your community, so you know this team. It's not just about familiarity, though, because you're going to have other teams that are coming in, and they're going to say, oh, we're national, and we bring all these great perspectives in. We do, too. We work from Montana to Florida, all the way to Vermont, and all points in between. But our team is focused on bringing that mix of regional, national best practices, but also the locals are really key, because the zoning code is where the rubber meets the road. You're lucky, I will say. A lot of communities I go into bring us in because they don't have a trusted team of people in their backyard to help them through a project as complicated as this one. You have that. So we're presenting here tonight. Hopefully you'll choose us and select us because not only are we familiar to you, but we're qualified, and we focus on the issues that you're interested in, the problems you're interested in solving. So that's my kind of opening remarks. We're going to talk about the team members and the firms, make sure everybody is very clear on what each of these fine professionals are going to be doing, the project's goals, and then our project management objectives. But the most important, we want to hear questions from you that we can respond to. ZoneCo, I mentioned, exists at the intersection of law, planning, and design. I was chief counsel for land use and planning, city of Cincinnati, my hometown, 4 years. I helped write the form-based code there, which got adopted in 2013, a challenging, daunting project. Also, we redid the rest of the zoning code, redid all of the boards and commissions, procedures, rewrote the historic preservation ordinance, et cetera, et cetera. What I learned was that the consulting community that I was working with, coming from out of a law firm environment, I felt like I could do things better. And so that's why I formed ZoneCo, because I figured we need designers, we need planners, we also need lawyers. We need people with legal minds on this project because you're writing laws. So I wanted to put a multidisciplinary firm together to best serve our clients across the country. And that's what ZoneCo is. But we don't do it alone because we can't do everything. I'm just a small firm. So we team up with excellent local and national expertise. The folks we have sitting here, Sincar, you may know, is a local firm. Pure Architects, a local firm. OHM, which is based here, but has a national footprint. Fahey Schultz, which is a local firm which works on I don't even know how many, lots and lots, hundreds of communities around Michigan. And then General Code, which is the largest code hosting platform in the United States. And the Wayne Childs. So we bring together project management, community engagement, equity-centered design and engagement, form-based code calibration, GIS mapping and data integration services, and a whole ton of zoning experience. Like I said, all we do is write zoning codes, and our team is multidisciplinary. Trusted advisors to Royal Oak, we already talked about. Deep zoning experience. Existing map-based services. The mapping is going to be really key here as we look at your zones and districts, and also run advanced sort of AI searches to help assist the project, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we have design and development experts. That's really key. Understanding how development works here is going to be a big part of this project. 70 Michigan zoning projects among our team members. So we put together a team. Like I said, we're national. We're a little bit more spread out, but we put together a team of local folks. You can see the communities that they have worked in. A fair number of these have been Wayne BA's work as city attorney for these locations. You can see a lot of this has been Brad Strader's work. It's written zoning codes all over Michigan. So If there's a community in Michigan or a type of community in Michigan, our team's been in it. Knowledge and intricacies of engaging this community. That's the real key, I think. Like I said, familiarity isn't the only thing, but it's an important thing. Knowing us, but us knowing you and your city and your electorate, I think is a keen advantage of this team. Also, a track record of creating graphically rich hybrid codes and form-based codes. So zoning is not a static thing anymore. It is not just a map and some words. It is three-dimensional. It is how do we think about the built environment? How does any kind of new infill, you're built out. So this is an infill game here. Infill corridors, your downtown, how does that interact with the character of the existing city? That's so important. So many people have bought into this city, right? Have invested in this city. What they don't want is someone coming in and telling them the rules of the game are going to change on them and everything's going to change, right? We want to educate them. We want to bring them along through this process. That's really key. What I'm never going to do is come up here and tell someone what I think is the right answer. We're going to get the right answer from them. You've already done some of that through your planning, but we're going to do it in a technical process and in the zoning code rewrite. You can see the graphics are important, and the firms you're interviewing are all going to have great graphics. But it's about how you think about the code. I always think about writing zoning codes, not only from the user, the person sitting in their recliner on Sunday, trying to figure out whether they can put an addition on their house, but also, the architects and the lawyers who might, try to challenge the code. But I'm also thinking about it from the plans examiner standpoint. When we wrote the form-based code in Cincinnati, the plans examiners were like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to read this. This is new, right? How do we write this so that a plan examiner is familiar with it, is comfortable with it, can be educated on it, along with the public understanding it, being able to sit in their armchair and understand it? You shouldn't need architects and lawyers to decode this thing. They are part of the process, but they shouldn't be a necessary part of the process. So as you can see, graphics that explain the context for people, but also regulate, I think are going to be a very important part of your new zoning code. We have a lot of former public sector zoning administrators on the team. I think that's important. Folks that have worked in all types of cities and communities. People with real serious planning and land use experience from the staff side or who have served on boards and commissions like yours. All right, your strategic goals for your project. Master plan implementation, clear. This has to be the implementation of your planning work. Now, some of your planning work you may like, some of it you may look back and say, we need to tweak that here and there, and that's fine. But really the basis of any regulations has to be based in something, right? It has to be based, otherwise just arbitrary. So based in the master plan that you've already done and all that hard work, you can always point back to that throughout the project and say, this is what the community approved. This is why we're doing what we're doing, because a lot of the platitudes in comp plans will say things like, we want diversity of housing, we want equity, we want this and that is all wonderful, and these are things that the community does want. The question is, how do we get there? And that often doesn't come up in the comp planning process, it comes up in this process. And it's where the rubber meets the road on this process. And when we say, we're gonna triple the density, units per acre, people, whoa, I didn't buy into downtown Detroit, I bought into Royal Oak. And that means something, right, to them, and they have a picture of that. So we need to be really clear as we work throughout this process on being sensitive to the people that live here. That's the key. We're not coming in and top-downing this and pushing anyone towards anything. We have to be sensitive to what they bought into, but also educate them on how we can add gentle density. We can increase, we can add infill without changing the character of this community, what they bought into. That's really the balancing act that we have to do with the zoning code project, especially an infill in a built-out community. GIS and data integration, hugely. We have OHM on our team, and we're going to talk to Mike in a few minutes. Community engagement is the backbone of this project, like I said, but there are ways to do that. anybody can stand up here and lecture. That's not what we're talking about, okay? We're talking about bringing people along with us through this process. Form-based code, that term comes with a lot of baggage. You can be very, very, very traditional, purist form-based code and get down to porch typologies, frontage typologies, window typologies. You can get very, very, very granular with the form-based code. You could also just focus on building placement, parking location versus building placement, where the frontage meets the street, height, scale, massing, density, all those kinds of things. And use is still an important part of a form-based code. People still care what uses are mixed together, but hopefully we'll mix more of them. But so form-based code, you can take a lot of different approaches with a form-based code. I've done form-based codes from the most purest Form-Based Code Institute adopted, pledge, stamped code, all the way to what is more of a hybrid with form elements mixed into a traditional zoning code. So we can do any of those, whatever works. It's really whatever works best for your community. This is not just ideology that a lot of times consultants will come in with an ideology. This is the way it has to be. We're not like that. We want to do what's right for your community, and every community is different. This is not a cut and paste job. I'm not bringing a code that I did from another community in here. We really want to make this custom tailored, clear, consistent, user-friendly, equitable, and defensible, and I think we have the team to do that. All right, so I've gone on way too long, and so I'm going to bring in Marcus to talk more about form standards. If you would like me to go back one slide, and then from there, Brad can get up, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sean. So again, my name is Marcus King, the architect, urban designer by trade, also a developer as well too, done development here in the southeastern Michigan area and other places across the Midwest. When we talk about form standards, I kind of see them as a primary tool to be able to guide not just the massing and the orientation of buildings, which I think is really important. I think the aspect that gets overlooked a little bit is it's also a great tool that begins to help define the quality of public space, the public realm for people, which at the end of the day is what we design cities for in the first place, right? And so these form standards are, as we begin to define them through the process, should you guys choose us for this project, as we begin to define them for your community, yes, they will be able to guide the actual physical buildings, but they'll also be able to define the quality of space that the residents of Royal Oak will hopefully be able to enjoy. So to do that, what we'll do is pay particular attention to scale. And that is scale at a variety of different areas and different regions. There will be neighborhoods that have different scales. As you identify scale of different neighborhoods and different areas, the critical thing that we would like to be aware of is the transition between those scales, right? How you move from one neighborhood to the next, or one area or region of Royal Oak to the next, and figuring out how to create that sort of physical gradient of the physical built environment, but again, keeping that continuity of the public space. And so we'll accomplish this as the slide outlines through a variety of different tools. First and foremost, we'll do that through just an analysis in the context of things that are already there and that are already working, and be able to apply our sort of lens to the built environment as it exists right now. As Sean already alluded to, within a form-based code, we'll be able to create the foundation for establishing a regulating plan or set of regulating plans, depending on the particular areas and neighborhoods of Royal Oak, that be able to define, again, that physical public realm, but again, create that, that public space for people to enjoy. And then at the end of the day, we'll be able to apply our applied design and development experience to be able to calibrate that physical built environment alongside the actual code that'll be written. So all in all, form standards are a critical tool to the success of a zoning code that is more form-based than not. but again, not forgetting the public realm and the actual right-of-way that the public will actually engage in. The larger part of the public will engage in on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I'll pass it off to Brad to continue the presentation.
So one of my roles in this project is to kind of merge the form-based code or the zoning code with complete streets and the transportation plan, and that's kind of one of the niches I have. So when Michigan had a complete streets coalition, I would put together the Michigan Complete Streets Coalition. We had became the #1 state in the country for having complete streets code, and I'm the complete streets advisor to City of Birmingham and City of Lansing, City of Kalamazoo, and so forth. So that's kind of one of the things that I bring to the team. I've also done corridors in Birmingham and in Berkeley and in Royal Oak, Rochester Road, all the way up to City of Rochester, and currently involved in the Woodward Corridor Plan. I think it's my fifth project on Woodward. Finally, maybe we'll get it right this time, but trying to blend complete streets in with the land use plan. So we'll look at the master plan recommendations for land use. We'll look at the form-based code. I'll work with Sean and Marcus on the form-based code, and then work with your engineering process to make sure that we're considering the zoning and form-based code along with the transportation city, because you don't want the engineering department to have one idea for complete streets or road diet or something on another road, and the zoning code doesn't match it, or we don't want to widen a street and then have a walkable environment and so forth. So my role is just to make sure that the transportation planning and engineering matches the form-based code, because in Michigan law, the form-based code covers everything on the property outside the right-of-way, but it doesn't control what's in the right-of-way. So we'll merge the two, and I think that's one of the things that I'll do on this project.
And Brad, I think you have a couple more here. So.
Am I next up?
Yep.
I guess I can do the next one, because kind of times, so my office was in Royal Oak at 4th and Washington for 20 years, so I know Royal Oak very well and did a lot of work for the city in that time, and we know there's been a lot of changes to downtown and pressures. I worked on Centennial Commons and so forth, so one of the things I'll be working on is the downtown vibrancy and what codes really work in the downtown and what codes don't work in the downtown, so that will be another aspect of the project. And then the industrial area, we'll look at that. There's a lot of discussions in the master plan on that. That's where my groomers are, actually. So I go on that road like every month, and I know there's a transition there from what's in there now and what historically was there into residential and mixture of consumer, industrial, and so forth. It's much like the kind of the rail district in Birmingham. I've done a lot of work there too, and I think that there's a lot of good ideas in the master plan for this area, but when you get down to the code, that's really what is legally allowed. And so sometimes people say, oh, we like all these great things, but when it comes down to change, maybe they're not ready for that change, and we'll just have to work with what change are you ready for now in this area, and making sure that we're making sure the road design and the form-based code kind of matches this area.
All right, thank you, Brad. Streamlined development approvals, we know, is one of the goals of this project. Here's what I say about that. If we get the form right and we get the standards right, that's going to make your lives much easier on the administrative side of things. One, the code will help reduce the code that's easier to use, clearer and more consistent, will help reduce friction, will help reduce the questions that you get, the staff time, but also having a baked-in form that has been approved by the community is acceptable for infill development and redevelopment and corridor development will help reduce the friction on the back end of the project. So fewer design by committee, fewer hearings, a little bit more administrative review, because a lot of that hard work has been done on the front end of this project through this process. So that's the idea between streamlined development approvals. Having a code that's modern, that's well-written, and that has accompanying documents associated with it that educate the public, I think, is key. Mike, GIS, technology and interactive mapping.
How's it going? So the city is an Esri GIS shop and has utilized Esri for a while. OHM, we're a Esri Gold partner and a state and local government specialty partner with Esri, and we're one of 46 in the entire world that can say that. We bring the proven local industry experience to develop custom GIS solutions for our clients. We're going to work with the team in the city to build a custom GIS application, mobile friendly, that'll help show what's permitted and what's not permitted on a property. In terms of a data integration aspect, we'll connect our zoning and land use information with other local and regional data sets from Oakland County to SEMCOG and the state. There's a lot of data out there. We can put it all into one user-friendly application like we've done with others in the region and just help disseminate that information and be transparent. From the transparency, getting that information out is key, making it user-friendly for all ages and backgrounds, multilingual support, et cetera. We're here, we've built applications for that. And then from an efficiency standpoint, by working with OHM and this team, you'll amortize your investment across other existing GIS contracts that we have with the city. We just went on a contract last month, 2 months ago now, to help rebuild and revitalize the city's GIS. And I'm going to be working with multiple departments here, 2 of which are here. And this kind of ties right into that whole program and hopefully the plan moving forward. So looking forward to helping build some useful applications and working with this team to get that information out. And yeah, I love this community. I come here all the time. So thank you guys.
Outstanding. Maybe Wayne Childs, you want to follow on that about
Sure.
the hosting piece of this?
Sure. So you're already a customer of General Codes. We have published and updated your municipal code since 2003. So we already know each other well. We already know your code, your practices, some of your staff. What you might not know is, and part of the reason why I love getting into opportunities like this with great partners in planning departments when there's a major zoning overhaul, is because it allows us to really highlight to the people who use it and benefit from it a lot of features that sort of go silent sometimes. We have API capabilities, so we can take code, because the thing I always talk about code is you're going to get a great update from team here. But you're always going to have amendments down the road. So also in thinking about down the road and keeping a code up to date, as that code changes, for example, if a great interactive zoning map is built, we have APIs where we can feed that code right over to somebody. So we have that ability. We have mobile app. I don't know if any of you know that, but there's a mobile app. It's free. iOS, Android, today you can go download it from the stores and be able to search the code. So what we hope to bring to this team is continuity. That relationship is really worth something. Your constituents are used to a tool. It's been out there in their hands for a while. We've seen a huge benefit. We've seen sometimes, some of our clients have taken their zoning code and done something else. And the vast majority of those in the last 10 years have actually come back after creating a disjointed experience where the zoning code is treated or hosted in a different manner. And that's something unique about General Code in the codification world. Is we're really proud in the last 10 years of all the effort we've put into specifically supporting the zoning codes. The graphics, when Sean was showing some of those graphics, we've really upped our game regarding our publishing practices, the skill sets that we've brought in, graphic design people, web design people. The beautiful final ordinance that you adopt at the end of this, we will make sure that it looks exactly like it is. That's not always the way things were. I've been at General Code for 13 years. When I came in, I came out of the web publishing world. I knew absolutely nothing about code, and now I'm my local planning board chairman. So really we've gotten into it, and the whole company has, because, a stat I'd like to put out there for you is over 80% of all municipal code searches are in the zoning or land use code. So traditionally, the decision on who you use to host your code has fallen usually in a clerk's hands or city secretary down south. Planning really should have a voice in how these codes are hosted, and we're really proud to be able to do that. and still maintain that the traditional codification services that we do with paralegals and attorneys and legal editors. We've been in business since 1962. We know how to maintain codes, but we've also adapted with technology and we've integrated with partners to make sure that your code looks great going forward.
Thank you, Wayne. I want to hear about legal review from the other Wayne.
Yeah, you've got back-to-back Waynes here, so good evening, everyone. Wayne B.A. with Fahey Schultz, Berzik and Rhodes. And we're, as was mentioned, we're part of the legal team that'll be helping out with several aspects. We're already serving as special counsel for Royal Oak. Lizzie Mills from our shop has been working with the city on some labor and employment matters. Our firm is about size about 40 plus attorneys, about 20 that are in the municipal area where I focus, and we really have a strong specialty in the planning and zoning aspect. And excuse me. And in terms of our team, we really can bring not only myself to the team here, but the rest of the team that has been worked extensively on planning and zoning. But one of the things I think that the team sought me out in our firm, I have experience. I've been a planner for 30 years, attorney for 15, and so and I've served on a planning commission like several of the members here. We've walked the talk, and so. From that standpoint, I think we really can bring some efficiency there. And my own experience with training local officials and public engagement, that's been a key part before coming to the firm. I was with Michigan State University for a long time, training planning officials around the state. So those are some key things. And in terms of municipalities we represent, you can see from the map, we're literally all over the state. We have clients in the UP as well as strong presence in mid-Michigan and throughout. About 25 cities that we've worked with. So I think we can bring both the practical aspects and our experience from both small communities and large. But one of the things that we found is the same is, all communities, the citizens, they want to be able to have practical solutions and something that they can understand and read. And part of my job is to put together a defensible ordinance at the end of the day and keep the team true to that, yet also with the lens of understanding something that's going to be practical and defensible. So I think those are the things that we're able to bring. And our extensive litigation that we've done, particularly in planning and zoning matters, that experience, I think, really lends itself to our review and particularly, my review of some of the code as we go forward.
Thanks, Wayne.
So we've already talked a little bit about our team's experience in Royal Oak and in the area. So I've worked in Royal Oak and all the Woodward Corridor communities for like 30 years. Adam Cook, who's with OHM, worked on the master plan. He was some of the charrettes OHM is working with you now. Wayne and I used to work at the same firm. I think working with me convinced him he needed to become an attorney. So, but we know each other. We've worked well. I worked with Jocelyn on code writing in South Carolina, where I'm currently working on a couple of projects. So I think we really know Royal Oak. I've met hundreds of your residents at the Woodward workshops and on Centennial Commons and so forth. I think we know the vibe in Royal Oak, the expectations of Royal Oak. I was a trainer a couple times for the Planning Commission here in Royal Oak. So I think we just bring a lot. I think it's really important to know and trust the people you're working with, and I think that's something you can count on from us, and we'd really like to work with the officials, the stakeholders, the council and the Planning Commission on this moving forward, and hopefully you can answer any questions you have as we wrap it up.
Yeah, and I'll back up Brad here too, talking about some of the engagement things. So throughout engagement, we want to make sure that we try to engage the broadest amount of the population here in Royal Oak. That is to keep them informed, yes, but it's also to tap into something that I think has already been mentioned here, which is their sort of local expertise about the place that they actually live in themselves. There's knowledge here, and there's information here that we can tease out of that as well too, both personal and professional. And so that means really making sure that the wealth of information that already exists here is thoroughly engaged into the process, part of the process, informed along the way, but also making sure that groups that may have been historically underrepresented are also a part of the process as well too. Again, making sure that the entire community is part of the process of rewriting this code, which will affect everybody that lives here in Royal Oak. And the last piece here, which I think is critical, which is education. And that is really playing off of the good work that's already been done through the planning process. And so now we're going to start to, or your consultant, whoever you hire, is going to have the task of bringing some of those things in the master plan to light in a more technical process. And so educating the folks about what that actually means along the way, I think, is a critical piece to bringing people along and ultimately getting to an end result that that has most people bought into the vision and future of what Royal Oak will become. So thank you.
Wrap up here. I just want to talk real quick about project management objectives. Getting this project across the goal line is going to require keen project management and interaction between our team and the staff. There is a lot of staff time that goes into these projects. It's really important. You are the trusted and reliable planning source in your community. We come in and work hand in hand with you. You are professionals. You are experts on this community. We don't pretend to know more about it than you do. And so we want to communicate very clearly. The first thing we will do if we get hired is send about a 50-question survey out to Joseph and to Joe and to other folks in the staff, just kind of setting expectations about how much of this code, for example, are we rewriting? We talk about a rewrite. Are we throwing the whole thing in the trash and starting over? Are there provisions you like? Are there things that are working well? We need to understand that at the outset. Are we going to eliminate all off-street parking minimums? A lot of communities say that's what we want to do. That's the thing to do in this country right now, eliminate off-street parking. We want to know from the outset, is that even something we should even be, is that a non-starter? Might be. So with questions like that, we want to get on the table at the very outset of the project so that we are all level set and we know. Another good example of that. Do you want a red line of every single word? Are your commission and your council going to want to know why I changed or to and? In paragraph 52 of page 158. If that's the case, that's fine. Then I need to know that up front because we'll create a very detailed red line for your community. If your community says, I don't care, we trust you, just put together something, our lawyer will review it, great. And we'll draft it a little differently. So those are those expectations. We also have bi-weekly meetings scheduled that we will actually attend, and we'll have a feedback loop on. Very important that we make sure that we are keeping this project moving. The last thing you want to do is have a project lag like this because people lose interest, leadership changes, sometimes staff changes in the middle. All of those things can be very disruptive to a project. So let's keep it moving, get it done within the time frame. What we'll do is we'll set up a calendar from the day you want it adopted, and we'll work backwards to the starting point, okay? Not from the start to some unknown date. Very important. And we use a employee waterfall management approach, meaning you have to get through certain modules of the project to get to the next module. We start with a diagnostic, which is a review of how your existing code does or does not advance the goals of your comp plan. We will review every single line of your code, and we will score it against that. My big thing is, if you don't know why you're legislating or regulating something, then don't regulate it. There needs to be a real purpose behind it, right? And so let's take out stuff that doesn't make sense. Take out stuff that was just layer cake, piecemeal added over time to deal with that specific issue of the day that may not be relevant anymore. So we go through every line of your code. We say, okay, what is the justification for this? And it really illuminates for you, the public, and everyone involved, aha, here's where the friction is. Here's why we're not getting the development we want to have in our community necessarily, or here's why we're getting whatever outcomes that we're not looking for. And this is why we're spending the time and the resources on this project. So that's the first step. Then we calibrate. Calibration is very key. Get those development standards and uses calibrated to the outcomes. And then we code it. And we make sure it's written, like I said, clear, custom tailored, clear, consistent, user-friendly manner. So, and then it's off to adoption, which we're hand in hand with you throughout that as well. I'll stop talking, and let's talk. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for our presenter? Mr. Ellison.
Have you established already a single point of contact for us? Who's going to be running this operation? It's going to
Me.
be you.
Yeah.
You're going to be the day-to-day guy we talk to.
I'm the guy.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. We have a communications director here and a community engagement specialist. Not surprisingly, they are very, very busy. How will you, what do you need from them, and what will you bring to them in order to minimize the work that they have to do on the community engagement and communications portion of this project?
Awesome question. We will meet with them from the project kickoff meeting day one. So first thing we do on a project is we have a project kickoff meeting. We all come here for almost a full day, not only to go on a tour of the city, make sure you're showing us all the stuff that's happening, but to meet with key staff members, including that team. And at that point in time, we will bring our team in to find out what they need from us. What we will bring them are extra hands, but also extra ideas, and all the assistance that they could need to do their jobs, really supporting probably our team. It sounds like they're very busy with other things, so to the extent they can support our team because they know the community better than we do, we will provide those extra set of hands. Anybody on the...
Yeah, I think just one thing to add, so at the beginning of the process...
Microphone, please.
Oh, doesn't this work? It says it's
I don't
on.
know.
Yep, I think it's on. We would do a community engagement plan, so when we have the kickoff meeting and sit down with them, then we will say, here's the community engagement, then we'll talk about the website and survey questions and so forth. We'll outline the schedule, what we're going to do, what we need from them, and we'll come to an agreement, and then they'll sort of adopt the engagement plan with us, and then probably like halfway through the code, we'll rescope it and say what's working, what do we need to change, and then we'll adapt it, working with your staff and your communication staff throughout.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm going to go with Mr. Mayor down there.
Yeah, I'll just have two questions. I'll ask one right now and then one later. So, talked a lot about community engagement. That's critical and key, and not just in terms of getting the input we need to shape this, but also it's part education and information as well, because these can get pretty complex.
Yeah.
So you have a local team here that you've mentioned in your presentation that have done work in the city, so you have familiarity. What would you say right now would be the biggest challenge, or the biggest pushback that we would get from, or the biggest concern maybe, that would need to be evaluated from our residents as we start this process? And it may change, it may not be right, they may be wrong, but in general, what do you think is going to come out of the gate as the
Fear.
Fear? Of what?
Fear. And I say that having, and you all can add on, folks who work here more, but I say that from work across the country. I've worked in communities of all types and all income levels. We did the code in Portsmouth, Ohio. They had not seen a new residence built in 10 years in Portsmouth, Ohio. I did the code in Palm Beach, Florida, town of. You know who's the most famous person there. They have 3,500 a square foot housing in Palm Beach. So I've had to engage with a vast variety of people of all types. And I can tell you the number one thing, whether it's Portsmouth or Palm Beach, is fear of change. It is, we bought into this community the way it is. People move into a community like they buy a car or something, right? You choose what suits you, whether it's schools, whether it's the walkability, the amenities, safety, all those things, as we know. That's why you pick a community. And what they don't trust is they want to be able to trust that we are maintaining what they bought into, but also making it better, right? So sometimes, a lot of people we talk with, what's here now, even if it's not the greatest, is better than the unknown. So we need to show them that the unknown isn't so unknown. We've already planned for it, right? And get them comfortable with, here's what you said as a community you want the future of this community to be. Here's how we can get there without taking away anything from you. This is additive. I think that's probably the key thing. Anyone else specific to Royal Oak? No? Okay. Is that, I mean, do you get
Well,
that?
I was looking, and I appreciate that, and we know that.
Yeah.
And we've endured that. I think I was looking more specifically based on your local knowledge in terms of, hey, they're going to come out and they're going to be worried about traffic, or they're going to worry about, how that like ADUs coming in, or whatever. Even before we start this, we're going to have, folks that are, like you said, afraid of change.
Yeah.
But what are they going to come with as their, not ammunition, that's a bad way of putting it, but, what are their messages in their head and in their heart that are coming out of the gate to say, we can't do any of this because of,
Well,
you know,
I
it's gonna
guess
do
I
these
can
three
answer. So in this area, right, it's just what Sean said, it's fear of change. I don't know specifically what it would be, but I worked with Huntington Woods on the master plan into zoning. The council was all behind ADUs, the public dead set against ADUs. In Birmingham, dead set against road diets. Questions about bike lanes, depending on where you go. There's not like one answer in Royal Oak. It depends on, where you are in the city and what the, sometimes people like ideas in the master plan because, well, that probably won't happen, but here's what we'd like to see happen. But then when it comes down to changing the code, reality, what can happen, then people get very alarmed. And so I think you've just got to predict that. You'll have to decide, the city leaders will have to decide what change in the code are you going to tolerate and put up with some of this opposition, and other things you might decide, like in Birmingham, we said, these are the priorities. We got to get this through. These are things we'd like to have, but they're not essential, and we want to get the whole code adopted, so we're going to deal with these things separately later. So I don't know exactly what the changes would be, but I could tell you the things you brought up, ADUs. They don't want changes of density. They don't want changes to the street design. Parking is a big issue in Royal Oak, so if you talk about getting rid of all parking, architects in town might say we should get rid of all parking requirements, and the public would go crazy over getting rid of parking requirements. So I think that'd be part of this 50 questions that we'll ask at the beginning and see what's the tolerance, what is really important to change, and then we'll need to work with staff on some strategies of how to explain the change, and then be ready to change the code based on the reaction. So.
If I could just jump in, I live nearby and I followed the plan a little bit. Obviously, we had consultants that came in and worked on the plan. I don't believe any of them are moving forward to do this process. So anyone who hires will have to learn this. But from my understanding, single-family zoning, you still see the signs out there. Does it save our single-family zoning? These are topics we know are coming. Like Brad said, there's probably going to be a variety of issues we're going to need to get out ahead of. But we do have a basic familiarity with the issues that the community is passionate about based on the master plan process.
Or the most vocal part of the community.
Yes.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah, density, bulk, height, scale. I mean, 5/1, 6/1, 7-story buildings, that's not going to appeal to your single-family homeowners here, right? But what do people want to do? Infill. They don't want to infill with a single-family home. There's no way to do that economically. It's about economies of scale. It's about building units, right? So there's the tension. We're just going to have to work through that tension between folks who are saying that I bought into a single-family suburb.
Yeah.
But you're also a city that has a downtown and density and corridors. So how do we code for that it's respectful of what folks bought into?
that's going to be the challenge.
Yep. Maybe that's a test question, just to see
Yeah.
how acclimated you are with our community.
She lives in Ferndale. She's with Zonco, so Zonco does have boots on the ground here. Yeah.
All right, next up is Commissioner Gantina.
Staying on the theme of community engagement, can you highlight any unique tools or strategies that you implement to try to ensure, to the best of your ability, robust community engagement? You know, once the dates are picked and the venues are selected, that's sort of the logistical easy part, but actually getting the right stakeholders and community members to show up to give the valuable feedback is usually the challenging part.
Yeah.
So do you implement anything that's unique to ZoneCo that helps with that effort?
Jocelyn from Zonco.
Right, so I think it's a bit of a multi-pronged approach, as you said. I think we have to have stakeholders. We need to have users of the code, people who are used to seeing it every day, and their input, which will be sort of different than when we're engaging in the community that isn't used to seeing a zoning code every day. So the tools that we'll use are a little bit different, and so we want to create the right venue for that. So for example, developers, land use attorneys who are used to using the code will create a focus group. Not just a focus group, we're going to try and tailor that to the individual topics that they might be interested in. So your business association, you might know that there are specific topics of interest to them. Parking might be one of them. So we're going to tailor the setting and try to hone in on what these groups are interested in. When it comes to the community, education is a big piece of this. So something that we do regularly is we're always trying to think about ways to increase comprehension, right? Because, engagement for the zoning code is different than engagement for the master plan. We need to set education about what the zoning code can and can't affect. So some examples of tools are, what was it, a housing, urban, the dictionary, a visual urban dictionary. And a de-jargoning guide. So these are the types of tools that we create for the community, and they can go on a website, they can be distributed, and they can look at those items and just increase their comprehension. I think visual tools, so we work with OHM on lots of different projects, and something that we're starting to increasingly utilize is map-based tools to visualize change. So when we get to the end of this project, your community is going to be very interested in what is changing. So we use map-based tools that can also take sites of interest and sort of demonstrate what will be allowed under the new zoning. So it's not just this hypothetical of what will be allowed. We can create a visual around that, engage the community. So increasing their comprehension, and the map lets them understand on a granular property by property level what is being proposed. So OHM has really, they are investing a lot in GIS technology, and it is being leveraged very well for engagement. So I don't know if, Michael, you want to add to that, but there's an array of tools, array of settings we're going to want to utilize. So this is something we're going to iron out when we get to the point of developing the engagement plan. But there's more targeted events where we're talking directly about zoning. There might be early on engagements where we maybe go to the market next door and just increase awareness of the project early on. These are the types of venues that we will sort of mix together to just make sure we're reaching as many community members as possible. But Michael, it looks like you want to jump in.
Yeah, and I was going to add to that, not everybody can make a meeting, whether it's transportation, a bunch of different factors. But back to one of the comments Marcus made earlier is making sure we're serving everybody. And so any kind of surveys or instead of just a standard Survey Monkey, for example, we've made very complex GIS applications that have a map-based component where you can do drop-downs and if-thens and questions and really target and make a really nice custom-branded QR code and bit.ly link to share out on social media to increase that engagement is super important. We just did that with RCOC on the Safe Streets for All project this past year. By putting that out, that survey out, we got thousands of responses. That was very valuable into that planning process. Because every one of those people would not have been able to go to those meetings. And so coming up with easy to use custom mobile-friendly tools where you're at a farmer's market, put up a QR code and a display case for it and say, hey, scan this and fill out this survey for us. Like trying to capture as many of those nodes as possible. So we're here to help for that.
One thing we've done, depends on the community. It's a hard question to answer because we have to tailor it to your community. There's a million tools and techniques and tactics, and everybody's going to tell you about all this stuff they can do. But it doesn't have to be high tech. It can be a one-on-one meeting. I did over 50 one-on-one meetings in Palm Beach. not there. I wasn't going there just for the palm trees. I actually over Zoom from my office, 50 one-on-one meetings, half hour each. They were so valuable because what you're trying to build as a consultant team is trust with the community. So very early on, we need to build that trust so that when we come in with an idea, people realize we have the best interests of the city at heart and in mind. So one-on-one meetings with key people, really, really important, and doesn't take any kind of fancy technology to do that.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Can you clarify whether FBSR's role is going to be integrated into the drafting process, or is that more of an end-stage legal review once the completed ordinance is done?
Absolutely integrated. I believe very, very strongly that lawyers should be writing laws. I am a lawyer as well, and played that role for the city of Cincinnati, like I mentioned. And so, yeah, that's why we have Wayne on the team. I don't think you should be writing zoning codes, and I'm glad to see you here because oftentimes we'll come in and the city attorney only swoops in at the very end when it's like, oh my gosh, they have to draft the ordinance and send it to the council. No, we want you to be part of the process, and we want Wayne's team to be part of the process. So absolutely will be integral.
Just to build on that, I mentioned just with my planning background, I've done charrettes. I've taught the form-based code, and I understand from the beginning process, from engagement through the code development and then the review. If I'm only involved at the tail end, on some of it, it's not going to be as beneficial, I think, for the end product. So I think in short, and that allows for me to be able to have some efficiency in this too, because I understand the code aspect of it and from the engagement part of it. So I think that's certainly a contribution that I can help make.
Yeah, we want to make this consistent and clear, not ambiguous. We do not want to go through this effort and then have crafty land use attorneys drive trucks through it. That's no fun. They'll still find a way. That's why they get paid. But we want to make it as bulletproof as possible because this is your vision, and we want to make sure it's defensible.
Mr. Mayor, you said you had the second question.
Yep, it doesn't have to be a long answer, but I take it you've read our master use plan?
Yes.
What's one thing we did really, really well, and what's one thing that maybe was a miss on our end?
Ooh. You had a lot of strong feelings about it earlier. We were talking. Don't be shy.
I moved here sort of partway through the process. I have questions. I wasn't here for the process. So around the Delamere industrial area, sort of how the engagement with the business owners happened. That was one question I had because, we work in, because just we work in a lot of communities where, there are businesses there. It's an interesting dynamic. But something that we do see is we see a lot more makerspace uses or light industrial uses being mixed in with business districts and housing, mixed use development, right? So it's an interesting place and what the future will be. But it's just something I'm not used to seeing working in the Rust Belt, where we work with rezoning for a lot of communities where it's defunct industrial. So the future use mixing there is going to be interesting. I didn't say anything negative. I just think it's going to be an interesting.
You can say something negative.
The thing is, I don't know, I don't have enough context to say anything negative, but I think it's going to be an interesting part of this process.
I think another example would be Woodward, which I think good and bad. So I think the idea of Woodward, and I've talked to your staff at our Woodward meetings, the changes of commercial or retail to residential and the land use changes I thought were really outstanding and something that some of the other communities along Woodward could do. I think the road design plans of the service drives and bus pullouts and the roads kind of dump into side streets and side streets are closed, but how's the operations going to work? I would see working with MDOT and looking at that, some of the road design plans in the master plan aren't very workable. So I think land use was great, road design, not so great.
All right. So, to be fair, it's 6 o'clock. So I think we're going to have to close this part of the meeting. We're going to thank you guys for all your information. There were other questions that we didn't get to, but that's how it shakes. And I would say, Mr. Murphy, anything else other than to bring the next group in?
Call for public comment.
What's that?
Call for public comment.
Oh, after each one or at the very end?
Oh, so is it noticed as 2 meetings or is it noticed as 1 meeting?
One meeting. I think it's at the end there.
So, yeah, it's
Okay.
at the end.
And if you do have additional questions, we are happy to respond in writing to them,
Oh,
if you'd like to send those along.
okay.
Thank you all.
What's that? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Sure, we'll take a 3-minute break. Trying to be even-handed here.
Good to see you, Mr. Public. How are you, sir? Good, how are you doing? Not bad, not bad.
All right, everyone, we're going to reconvene for part 2 of our special meeting of the Royal Oak Planning Commission to review to conduct interviews with the respondents to the RFP. And do we have the whole team here? We've got everybody?
we do. Yep.
Okay. So we've got our whole team. So, Mr. Murphy, any introduction here?
No, we'll let them do their dog and pony show.
All right. Please introduce your team and give us your presentation.
Thank you. Am I talking into this?
Yes.
Yeah. Does the 3-minute timer start now?
It does not.
Okay.
You got an hour.
Okay.
Okay, so the
All
other
right.
guys got.
I'll be quick. Well, thanks for having us tonight. Appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk to you. Really looking forward to this conversation. Hoping you have some good questions for us. We have some questions for you, potentially. But yeah, thank you. We'll introduce ourselves kind of as part of the presentation, so you'll get a sense of who we are and what we do. So just going to talk through these kind of 4 different components in tonight's presentation. So I'm just going to do some kind of introductions, talk a little bit about our experience. We're going to have Max talk about kind of our approach to using the internet and the web-based technology as a way to display the zoning and the map as part of this effort. Andrew's going to talk a little bit about engagement, and then Renee's going to help walk you through how we're actually going to get this project done. So just a little bit about Code Studio. We've been doing this kind of work for a while now. I've personally been doing this work for longer than I care to say, but pretty much have been doing work on zoning since I got out of graduate school, so for 20 plus years or so. You know, in order to do this kind of work properly, I think we believe that you know, right-sizing the plans and codes requires a deep understanding for each of the communities we work in. We can't just kind of parachute in. We really need to understand the place in order to get the zoning right for a community. We really specialize in working on plans and codes that kind of yield vibrant mixed use and walkable communities. So I think we're in a pretty good spot here. You know, just took a kind of a quick look around the community, drove around, hung out on Main Street, went to the coffee shop, and you guys have a lot of activity happen here. Very walkable. Not exactly the most walkable weather today, but I'm glad that we all made it. It was a little touch and go there. I was wondering if, you know, we're going to get here. I would suggest we're a leader in the preparation of adoptable and easy to use regulations. We really focus on putting together kind of highly visual and easy to use zoning and development codes. That's kind of like what we do. I would suggest we spend a lot of time thinking about it. As I said, been doing this for almost 20 years, so next year will be our Code Studio's 20th anniversary. So congratulations to us. We have, give or take, about 13 employees working on zoning projects around the country. We have 4 office locations. I am personally based in LA. Our head office is in Austin, Texas. We have an office in Atlanta, and then Renee is based in nearby Toronto, basically. So he would be servicing this project for the most part, and it's easily drivable. I would be here as well. We have a lot of work on the East Coast, so you would see me a fair amount as well. We're doing work in Richmond, for example, and St. Louis, so we're always kind of bouncing around all over the place. Over the years, this probably needs a bit of an update at this point, but we've done approximately 111 projects since we've been around since 2006. The majority of the work that we do is on zoning and development codes. You'll see we've done about 25 unified development codes, 37 zoning and subdivision codes, 23 form-based codes, and 4 model codes. So zoning is what we do for a living, and we've been doing it for a long time. So as I kind of mentioned, the display of information is very big for us. We've kind of refined our approach to how we display our zoning ordinances. This is just kind of an example of kind of a 2-page spread that we like to use that really tries to make it understandable and a summary of what the requirements are for folks. So we use these kind of 2-page layouts. So for the most part, you would get a solid understanding of what your zoning district allows you to do from a dimensional perspective using these 2 pages. So we spend a lot of time and have spent a lot of time kind of refining that approach over the years. As I kind of mentioned, we work all over the country from the kind of the West Coast. We're based in Texas, so we do a lot of work in Texas, but a lot of our work is based on the kind of the East Coast of the country. So I'm not going to go through all this set of codes here, but this just kind of gives you a sense of the different places that we've worked around the country. So we've worked in Atlanta, we worked in Jackson, we've worked in Honolulu, we've worked in LA, Asheville, Fort Worth, Knoxville, Tennessee. So we kind of have worked pretty much all around the country doing this type of work over the years. So just to give you a sense of kind of who's doing what, Code Studio would be kind of the overall project management firm. We would work primarily on the zoning. It would be us that would do the drafting, the zoning itself, the analysis. We've got Max here from Gridix, who's going to help us with the technology piece that I mentioned before. Andrew is going to be engagement. And then we've got our legal support. So just to make sure that we've got James here, who's going to make sure that what we're doing makes sense legally. So just a little bit about myself. I kind of mentioned it, Colin Scarf. I would be the principal in charge. I am the co-founder of Code Studio, so we started that in 2006. In that time, probably done 40 plus codes or so. Some places that I've worked in: Detroit, Cleveland, LA, Denver, Raleigh, Houston, Memphis, Durham, Richmond, St. Louis, just to name a few of some of the kind of zoning projects that we worked on. And then I'm just going to let Renee kind of introduce himself real quick.
Sure, I'll add more later, but I'm Renee Bieberstein, Associate Principal at Code Studio, involved in managing a variety of large-scale code projects that Code Studio is working on right now, including Amherst previously and currently Richmond and St. Louis, so working closely with Colin and other staff on all those projects.
And these are just some other faces that you might see. I don't want you to think that it's just Renee and I working on this project. But Hizzy's going to help us out with kind of like day-to-day project management, just to make sure what we're doing is on time and on budget and everything's moving along smoothly. You might see Asha, and then you might see Vodka as well involved in this project. So those are just some faces that you might like to see. And then I'm just going to hand over to Max to introduce himself real quick.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. So Max Zavala, I'm the co-founder of Gridix, and we pretty much work on the same wavelength. Understanding the clarity of a code is crucial to the usability of the code and the understanding of the code. So I founded Gridix as a tool, an online system tool that can analyze and visualize not only the layers at the parcel-specific level, but also the text. Our technology uses an intelligence behind the scenes that actually can translate information to every parcel in the city. Our text as well has the ability to provide, hands over the keys essentially for the editing to the city if needed. And we'll show you a little bit more in a little bit.
Andrew?
All right. Yeah, so hello everybody. My name is Andrew Wald. I'm a Detroit-based urban planner and designer. I have a small practice called Another World Planning and Design, which specializes in community-oriented planning and design projects for mostly cities and community-based nonprofit organizations. So although I call myself a planner, I do a lot of engagement design and outreach and education work as a, kind of part and parcel of how I do my projects and learn about communities. And so that's the role that I'll be excited to provide for this project. So I'll talk more about that soon.
James, you want to say hi real quick?
Good evening. My name is Jim Tam. I'm an attorney with Kerr, Russell & Weber in Detroit. For the past 40 years, I've done land use planning and zoning, had the opportunity to work with Mr. Quesada in the past, and have done work for the city of Royal Oak. My role would essentially be to review zoning provisions, make sure that they're in compliance with the Zoning Enabling Act. I've done that for communities throughout the state of Michigan, and I've represented communities where their zoning ordinance has been challenged, so hopefully I'd be able to provide the support for the rest of the team.
Thanks. I just want to talk to you a little bit about some projects that we worked on. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about 3 projects and then move on. I feel like I need to talk to you guys about Detroit. It's a local community, very different from you guys. It's been going on for a while. So we started back in 2018, pre-COVID. So we're trying to figure out how to finish that off. I think, it got stuck in COVID. There were some challenges associated with that. As we all, no one planned for a worldwide pandemic. I think ultimately there was a lot of pushback from the neighborhoods for some of the ideas that were in the zoning, and we didn't get much support from staff. Some of the things that were sticking points in the community that you might relate to, ADUs, the idea of adding ADUs into existing neighborhoods. Parking has been a challenge for them, how much to require, logistics uses, and there were a number of other uses that turned out to be sticking points. And if you've been keeping an eye on what's going on there, the mayor himself, before he left, was trying to push through some housing amendments, which didn't successfully happen before he left office. So that is still moving forward. It's just a very challenging community to work in. Their last comprehensive rewrite was in 2005. What we're really trying to do is just make it simpler and easier and a more visual code with a kind of a focus on implementing more form throughout the community with a real focus on, adding development intensity throughout along some of the major corridors. I think ultimately the biggest issue was there was no updated master plan for us to work from. They are going through updating their plan, but I think we were challenged with trying to implement zoning through planning, which was a challenge moving forward. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Richmond. It is Richmond, Virginia. It's a bigger city than you guys, but they are going through some of the same issues that you're going through. So they just recently adopted their new kind of comprehensive land use plan, Richmond 300. They have a kind of a deep history with a strong cultural resource perspective. They have an old ordinance, and they use what they call a special use permit process to basically approve development because their zoning ordinance isn't working for them. I think you guys do that a little bit with plan developments, and these have typically being workarounds. If your existing zoning ordinance isn't working properly, you come up with these mechanisms. And you guys have used plan developments, they use special use permits. There's a significant divide between the northern portion of the city and the southern. They have made some recent code changes. So they did things like eliminate parking before we got involved, thank goodness. They also allowed ADUs, and then they have a new BRT line that they adopted new zoning to kind of encourage density along that bus line. So some challenges, just weaning staff off the SUP process. One of the first things that we had to do for them, and I think you'll appreciate this, but if you look at the top image here, the Richmond 300 land uses, we've got to figure out what zoning districts would apply in what future land use categories. And I think, your current plan does that today with your existing districts, gives you a sense of what existing zoning districts would go in whether it's a preservation area or a growth area. So one of the first things you're going to have to do is figure out what new zoning districts are going to end up within the existing land use categories, because the zoning ultimately is going to be more granular. There's a massive affordability issue in the city of Richmond. As people have moved down from the DC area, Richmond used to be fairly affordable. It's just got really expensive really quickly. So they've been figuring out how to deal with that from a zoning perspective. This idea of preserving neighborhood character has been a huge issue. Height and density and how we transition appropriately from mixed-use areas to established residential areas. Tree preservation and tree coverage has been an issue. And then this idea of adding little bits of commercial activity into residential neighborhoods. So, there's just a couple of graphics that we put together for Richmond to help deal with the kind of neighborhood character issue. So this idea that like front setbacks have to be within a range of established setbacks on the block, so they fit with what's there today. And then this idea of like, you know, making sure that new houses are in scale with existing houses, so you don't get new houses that tower over existing houses, to kind of help preserve that neighborhood character. Bozeman, I bring this one up just because population-wise, it's similar size to you guys, so they have about 59,000 in population, which I think is about roughly about the size of you guys. It's a little bit bigger of a land area, but again, they've had this same issue of, you know, pre-COVID, it was a relatively affordable community, and then post-COVID, it's just been slammed as everybody moved out of big cities into places like Bozeman where they could work from home. So it's just got incredibly expensive. They get a lot of snow, it gets very cold, but they also have a recently adopted growth plan. So some challenges, again, this whole idea of like preservation of neighborhood character, and what is that exactly? Density in established single-family neighborhoods, parking, you know, challenges of parking. I know you guys have had your challenges with parking and as it relates to big buildings, and impacts on neighboring neighborhoods, and then the bulk and mass of new buildings, and then again, like this challenge between tree preservation and infill housing and how they conflict with one another. So I'm going to pass it over to Max. He's going to talk a little bit about the whole technology piece. I think it's a very important piece of this work, and it's like really excited to be involved in this project. As you know, it's the future of what we do, is how we take this work and put it into the web, and make it as easy to use as possible.
Thank you, Colin. So yes, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about Gridix. Based of all, one of the things that I forgot to mention before, I am an architect and urban planner by training. I've actually been doing urban planning and architecture for the last 20 years. And Gridix really evolved out of this. Gridix is really a real estate and zoning technology based company. We have the ability, and we developed a patented zoning engine that have the ability to translate the analog, very static text information of all the regulations and translate it into actionable, searchable parcel data information. We have now multiple clients across the country. And one of the things that we pride ourselves is that we have all of the features that we couldn't have. I'm not going to read through all of them. We have the slides for you to take a look. Are really a response on all of the pain points that we've seen in all our clients, counties and cities from different sizes across the country. And we have multiple new features that we are currently working on that we're going to be developing on 2026, including, actually, it was very interesting to see that was part of the RFP, a conversational AI chatbot that has the ability to translate all of that very long text of zoning information, the parcel-specific zoning, GIS layers, etc., but for the general public, with the main intention that it becomes very clear, it becomes easy to understand, and the city has less questions to answer because most of the information is easy to find online. Now, I'm going to be showing you, we have multiple here. It was definitely not an effort to confuse, just wanted to show a wide array of examples. What we're trying to do, we are translating GIS capabilities, very sophisticated GIS capabilities. We can visualize any number of layers specifically to anything, all of the city, related to zoning or not related to zoning. And we made it in a very interactive 3D map that I'm going to show you towards the end, just as an example. Now, in addition to that, we add a very interactive and very robust filtering and searching capabilities. So this translates a little bit more into economic development. If you can actually find parcels, certain sizes, certain development capacity, separate locations. And all of these are available not only just to city staff, but also to the general public as well. Now, here is really where we become really powerful, in the sense that we translate that to every individual parcel, because not two parcels are exactly the same. They might be in the same zoning district, but they've had very different characteristics, sizes, locations, geometry, etc. Our system translates that specifically to each parcel, and that's what really makes it the system very, very powerful. Now, as one of the elements that we develop based on pain points from all our city clients is a text system that now connects directly with the map. In the front end for the general public is very similar to all of these systems, including the ones that you currently use today. but we have some very specific characteristics. One of them, and probably the most important one, is that we really don't make the business of making the editing. The editing of the text is not our business plan. So we can hand over the keys to the city, and the city staff is welcome to make all of the edits themselves. So as modifications happen here, they could be changed and modified and made live in the very next day. And now, if the city wants us to do it, we can do it. We have a very sophisticated team, and we can make the edits ourselves. Now, in addition to beyond, of course, not only is just for the general map, but very specific. So all the system is built in a way that is super easy to share. So as city staff is handling questions from the general public, they can actually share some of this information and hand over very, very quickly. It's all accessible right online. Behind the scenes, we have our patent engine. It not only can analyze your current zoning regulations, but we can also analyze the proposed regulations that will be coming out of this project. So we can test scenarios. We can analyze every single parcel in the city. See, is the impact exactly what you're looking for? Where are the potential complications? We can find that out very quickly, as our system can calculate anywhere between 15,000 and 20,000 parcels per hour. This also allows us to even create two versions of the map that I'm going to show you a little later today. One is the current, and the other one is the proposed. Again, it becomes really, really easy to translate and show the differences. And just a mock-up, but the idea is that conversational AI that we are going to be building this year will have the ability to not only translate your specific code, but will be maintained within the specific limits of your city. So less chances that it's going to deviate and start providing information that might not be applicable to Royal Oak. This is a very blank type of slide, but it's really just a list of our city clients. You have the access. All of these are open to the public. That's one of the features of our system. They're open to the public. The ones highlighted in green are the ones that we've participated in the projects of doing the before and after. We've had a lot of experience across the country doing this, and all of these projects have been very, very successful in that regard. That's it. Cool.
So we're just going to chat with you briefly about how we're going to talk to people about this project, right? It's really important. Like, we can't do this. We feel like we needed someone local to help us with this. So Andrew's going to talk to you a little bit about our engagement strategy. I think from Code Studio's perspective, we don't want people freaking out at the very end of the project saying, "Ah, what have you done?" Right? So engagement's really important to us. So we need to be prepared. We need to engage people. We have to educate people. We want to make sure the process is transparent. It's got to be immediate. We've got to get back to people to tell them how we're going to deal with their comments. We've got to collaborate with people, and ultimately what we want to do is empower people so they feel like they can get involved in this project.
All right. Okay, so how do we do that? There are a wide variety of tools and approaches that we can use and that our teams have experience working with for these types of planning projects. What's on the screen now is just a very select menu of potential tools that we could use for a project like this. So we know that we're going to have the more formal public meetings or kind of large format workshops that bring community members together, but not everybody shows up to a big public meeting. And in order to make this engagement process as inclusive and as broad as possible and try to capture a representative sample of Royal Oak, we need to try to figure out, well, how else can we reach the different constituencies that make up this city? So it could be surveys which take a variety of forms. It could be paper surveys, online ones, more visual oriented, kind of like ballot style activities, one-on-one interviews and deep listening sessions to provide people a way to share their lived experiences and allow our team to understand a little bit more kind of nuanced context for how this project is landing among residents or business owners or developers in Royal Oak. Focus groups for doing deep dives, publications, I'll show you an example of those, and hands-on tools are a few ways that we can make this zoning project a little bit more accessible to people who don't know yet that they care about zoning in their city. And making this, understandable, relevant to everyday people who are busy and need to be involved. So I'll also add to this, kind of in the summer months, especially pop-ups, walking tours, things that kind of get out into the community and meet people, and maybe a kind of quick touch, building awareness, inviting people to come out and get engaged in other ways. Those are things that we can do for this project. Quickly pass it to Colin.
I just wanted to mention a couple of technology-related systems that we use for outreach, and so this is Conveyo. It's just a way to post stuff online with a PDF and have interactive comments and back and forth conversations about draft code language. And then one thing that we've been pioneering, one of the things we're going to have to put together here is a new zoning map. That can be kind of challenging, so we've been working with this company called Atlas, and we put together kind of an online mapping, commenting system. So you'll see right here, this is from Richmond. You guys can go check this out if you go look up the Richmond project. But we have a new zoning map, and people have lots of things to say about that zoning map. And then they can have conversations amongst themselves about the zoning map. So it's a very important piece so that people feel like they can be heard. And in Richmond, we had 3,800 comments on the zoning map, and we read every single one of them.
All right. Yeah, a little bit more on the hands-on tools. I mean, this is something that I worked on with Code Studio a few years ago for the city of Detroit and their zoning process. This was an interactive, started out as kind of a game. It was basically an educational tool that toured around the city, could be deployed at public meetings, and was basically a level-setting tool to explain to people what is zoning, and let them explore the kind of implications of different zoning ideas in a way that was fun, easy to understand. People of different levels of expertise or experience with zoning didn't have to feel like they didn't have the vocabulary to join in the conversation. And so this was a way to make it possible to have really robust conversations about zoning goals without everybody at the table being an expert in it. And so this is something that is fairly involved to set up, but can be a very powerful tool and make people feel included in the process. Publications like this project newsletter can range from full-on newspapers to comic books or zines or flyers. It could be online. Ways to get the project out into people's homes, allow people to take something back with them from a meeting and show a neighbor or bring it to a block club meeting. Again, this is a way to make a zoning process, which can be dry, opaque, a little technical, into something that actually seems relevant in people's lives and something that seems friendly and that people would want to engage with. Another way that our team can do that is by having very appealing, approachable visuals, and trying to make this project as relatable as possible to residents' everyday lives. So showing, not just telling people what things could look like. If you do this, this is the type of development that would enable. You don't have to let your imagination run wild and this is something that you can picture it and imagine living next to. And then tracking the outreach. This is more for documenting for the city's purpose, but also for being able to feedback or show residents the level of engagement that's happened. So no one is saying, well, you didn't come talk to my neighborhood or you didn't listen to me. We want to document everything that we do and make sure that we have a good record. So if anybody asks, well, how did you reach this group of people, or how many comments did you get from this? We'll have that information in an easy to parse format. Just a couple of other project examples. I show this one to push for a flexible approach. This is a project I did in a neighborhood in Detroit that was was probably the most culturally diverse neighborhood in the city. We had to use a lot of tools, a lot of creativity to reach people throughout the entire process. And so, basically, you try something, you realize what works, you realize that you missed a group or that something was, didn't quite translate or something. You learn from that and try something new. With a city as large as Royal Oak, I think that it's important to stay nimble and be thinking on our feet and making sure that we're not just putting out a one-size-fits-all solution from the beginning and not changing it as we learn and hear from stakeholders. This is another example kind of based on the zoning game for Detroit. I'm showing this example because it was a super local activity. It was custom designed for a specific neighborhood in Chicago. It showed the actual buildings that were in their neighborhood. People could recognize their own house. People could recognize the streets. It felt like it was for them. So that will also be important to create an engagement approach that feels like it speaks directly to Royal Oak residents and that they recognize themselves in this plan. So.
So I'm going to speak a little bit about the project approach, timeline, and management. So just really briefly, thinking about the kind of general approach that we take. I think this has maybe come through in some of the other examples that have been shared before, but Code Studio's approach is always form forward, let's say. So we know there's a whole spectrum of different codes, from historic, Euclidean style codes all the way through to form-based. We tend to be more in the direction of form-based, but we're also flexible in the approach that we take, and we understand different cities, different parts of cities have different goals. But generally speaking, our approach is to place more emphasis on physical form. We place a really strong emphasis on the public realm and the relationship between buildings and that public realm around them. In a lot of ways, planning and urban design is really about how buildings interact with spaces, whether those be parks or streets. We really pride ourselves in producing end products that are clear and accessible. I think Colin's spoken a bit about this already, but codes that are understandable by the general public, that you don't have to be a lawyer or a planner to understand it. They're graphic, they use tables. We also really want to emphasize by right approvals as much as possible, so we want to try and front load the whole process of coming up with what we want to see in the future into this code as much as possible. We don't like highly discretionary processes that are opaque and confusing and long to go through. We want to come up with a system that's as efficient as possible and that as accurately describes what you want from the beginning as possible. And we generally try to avoid things like a code within a code, and by that I mean like tools such as overlays or add-ons. We'd like to try and make our code as integrated as possible. So we think that we have in our team the skills to do that. And again, when we talk about form-based codes and adding more detail, we think that we can integrate those into the fabric of the code itself rather than relying on add-ons. The project timeline, I'm not going to go through all this, although I'm happy to go back to it and answer questions. Our proposed approach was it was an 18-month timeline. And so happy to discuss it with you, or everything here is pretty flexible. But we're proposing a 4-phase system. So in addition to the ongoing tasks, there would be a phase 1, which would be the background review and a set of preliminary directions. So that would be working with you guys, doing the research, understanding your existing policy and code, doing initial meetings with the public. A second phase, which would be rolling out the districts and mapping. So that's sort of one module or one component of the draft code, and bringing that out to the public. And then a third phase, which would be development standards and administration. So that's sort of the other kind of more back-end part of the code. Also very important. And then finally, the finalization and adoption period. So I'm not going to go, it's a little bit too much to go through all together, but I'm going to just touch on a few of the highlights. in terms of the process and the project management approach. As you've probably got by now, we're located all over the place. Some of us are local, some of us are in other parts of the continent. But we're used to working on teams such as this, at least since COVID and probably well before for some of us. We use a lot of online tools for that, obviously Zoom meetings, Asana, Slack. We use a website called Miro, which is kind of an opportunity to post things and get comments back from staff. So a lot of internal drafts we workshop through Miro. Here's just a screenshot from a Miro board. So again, working with staff to share drafts and get comments. It's just a nice kind of easy, intuitive way to kind of work back and forth as if you were in the same room. The public engagement strategy, and this has already been spoken to, but obviously in the first phase of the project, we'd be working out what that engagement strategy is. So we'd be putting out a detailed document with the help of staff that would lay out in more precise terms exactly what the engagement strategy would be. So we'd be working with you guys and asking what your goals are in one of our very first meetings to inform that document. Existing conditions analysis, so this would be looking at your existing plans and policies, your existing code, going out into the community, taking photos, just getting to understand the place a lot better. So taking photos, meeting with you guys, meeting with other stakeholders initially. We would kind of conclude this phase with a code audit report. So this is something that we always produce. Essentially, it's our analysis of your existing code. It's where it works, where it doesn't work, how it's aligning to your plans goals, where it's not aligning. That's all. This is really going to help inform the approach that we take moving forward into the draft. So just really kind of getting everybody up to speed with this detailed analysis. And we try and put that out usually in a document that's publicly accessible and graphic in nature, so the public is also on board with this background. We definitely will be looking at things like transitions. I understand it's probably a big issue here where you have like more intensive development along major streets, backing onto neighborhoods. So looking at the way you do that today and other examples, we could look at precedent communities, approaches from other parts of the country. And as we start drafting the districts, they usually begin just in a document, in a spreadsheet like this. So sharing kind of an initial set of district metrics with staff, getting feedback on that, then transitioning that into a draft laid out document with graphics, including a consolidated use table, which is always really handy, both for staff and members of the public to see all the uses in one place and the districts across the top there. And then so these are the two different modules or components that we roll it out in. So the districts and uses and zoning map along the top. So that would be phase 2, and then phase 3, which would be the site development standards and administrative processes. And then moving into the web-based approach. So we've laid out one recommendation for how we would go into this. We could discuss with you guys in terms of when it's an appropriate point to go from offline to online. We've suggested that we could actually take your existing code and translate it into a sort of similar online approach. And so it'd be a handy way to kind of compare the two and allow members of the public in the process to be able to actually open it up and actually see what the difference would be between the initial existing code and what's being proposed during the process. But it could happen at different places in the process. Then we'd be eventually moving towards the public review draft. So this would be the consolidated draft code. To get there, bringing out the pieces to public meetings with boards like this. Using graphics as much as possible to communicate goals. So this is showing an illustration of a potential demonstration or build out using a code. And then eventually to the actual draft. So this would be the draft that would be taken out to council, that we could be involved in presenting that and answering questions. And then even after adoption, being involved in training as well. So we always take the approach that when adoption happens, that's not necessarily the end. We're also there to help you guys understand the code and learn to work with it. So we'd be doing training sessions with staff and committee members. You can see there's firefighters in this picture as well too. So all the sort of different people in the city that deal with codes, we'd like to sit down and work with them. And then this is the final marked up version. So in some cases, in the actual council vote, there's modifications that are made. So we'd be involved in kind of producing that final document as well. So just turn back to Colin for a second.
So thanks for bearing with us. I'm just going to close this out real quick. So why would you want to hire the Code Studio team? Our codes have unlocked the potential of local plans. I think we feel like we help our clients think boldly about their options and push them a little bit further forward than they might otherwise have done. We feel like our codes create greater certainty about built outcomes. We feel like, our codes level the playing field. So what we're trying to do is encourage local developers to get involved, not just like out of town or out of state consultants getting involved. We provided opportunities for investment and reinvestment, eased neighborhood infill. I feel like we sped up the process for approving development. Our codes improve the enforcement of regulations. They're more prescriptive, they're more understandable, so they're easier to enforce. And we've made it easier to adopt and implement future plans as you move forward in the process. We are a team of local experts with nationwide experience. I feel like we're attentive listeners. We're really responsive to local needs. We're collaborative by nature, and fundamentally, we're just good plain folks to work with. So thank you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to questions that you might have, and Max is just going to work on something in the background for you guys.
Just wanted to show you guys been very generous with your time, so I just wanted to show you. We wanted to prepare just a very quick example of how your system could look like. So we went ahead and digitized actually your existing map, and we loaded it into our system. As you can see, it's navigatable. You can actually see it in 3D. And then, as I said, our main power is really the access to every single parcel, which I have all of the information, calculated data, so specifics about the specific zoning, including links. In this case, I'm actually linking to your existing regulations, meaning that it can actually connect one another. With that said, we did test out, added a little bit of what it can do. We were literally just doing this in a cafe before coming here, and very navigatable. You can search it, but again, the main concept is that it's editable and it can be published, and we can track versions. That's it. Thank you so much.
All right. You ready for questions?
Yes.
Okay, are there questions for our presenter? Mr. Ellison.
Quick, easy one. Who's going to be your point person?
Renee.
Renee, okay.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Yep. You'll see both of us, but when you're unhappy, it's Renee's fault. When you're happy, it's definitely my fault.
Well, Colin has much more expertise and history in this work than I do, but I would be your day-to-day point person. So, yeah.
Commissioner Gantina.
So our master plan process timeline was significantly more prolonged than we originally had anticipated it being. You had laid out an 18-month process. Obviously, this is a group effort, a team effort between the city and the consultants doing the work. Can you identify the single biggest issue that we would need to guard against to make sure that that 18-month timeline doesn't extend out to 24 months or longer?
There's probably a number of issues. Public outreach or public participation, or making sure the general public is as informed as possible, as early as possible. They have a tendency, people don't pay attention during the beginning of these projects. I'll call it the honeymoon period, when we first start our projects. People are excited, but it ultimately depends on how hard we're pushing to change things, especially when it comes to established single-family neighborhoods. Your plan's a good plan. Talks about a number of things. It's not clear to me exactly how hard you want to push in some of those neighborhoods, or not. There's the conversation of ADUs. Is that as far as we're going with neighborhoods, or are we talking about duplexes or triplexes? And just this idea of the challenge of growth as it relates to neighborhood character. And so, informing as many people as early on as possible in as many different ways as we can is really important.
Just to add to that, I would say that, yeah, the biggest risk is when we get to the last phase of the project, people are like, I never heard about this, and I'm outraged by it. So we want to try and engage all those people early on and listen to their concerns.
If people say that, we have failed.
And by the way, sorry,
Collectively.
and to add to that as well, actually, one of the things that I didn't show you is all of our systems actually are on the mobile, because now everybody's aware and uses the mobile for everything. So even the text and the map is accessible and usable here. So we can also use that as a means to communicate.
So, for example, we were driving around today, and it has the little blue dot of where we were going, and then it tells you what the zoning is, and then you can kind of click on it, and it gives you like just a sense of like what the basic metrics are for that zoning district.
Mayor.
So, I mean, engagement's always really important. And I'm curious as to your approach or theory or how you do it when it comes to, we say change not just for the sake of change, right? We obviously have goals that we are attempting to implement. Those goals are rooted in our values and rooted in broad experience and feedback from our residents over the years. How do you, in these discussions, whether it's in a charrette or whether it's in any of your communications, to say, look, I understand you could say these changes will do these things, these changes won't do these things. But when it comes to like economic development, or it comes to bringing in housing or affordable housing, when we talk about zoning, we're talking about ultimately achieving certain goals, and I'll stop short of saying quantifying them. But how do you have those conversations? Do you have those conversations? Is that something that's not in your purview? And what is your experience on how to best approach that? Because let me give you an example. I don't understand why my neighborhood business, you would do this. This is stupid. Well, what it's going to do is it's going to trigger this type of development. And this type of development means you'll have these amenities and, whatever it may be. How do you have those conversations? Have you run into that, and how do you approach that?
Go ahead. Go first. Okay. I'm going to say this. You might disagree. You might agree. I have found it's very hard to change people's minds once they've made up their mind. So we are typically trying to talk to as many different people as possible. And so with Andrew's help, and so I will call them season ticket holders in a sense, right? The people that will show up to every meeting regardless. And we'll talk to them and listen. And sometimes we're making adjustments, right? So we've been working in Richmond. Like I mentioned, they have, a housing crisis, as they've called it. And, one of the things that they wanted to do was think of ways to integrate more housing opportunities into single-family neighborhoods, for example. They recently allowed ADUs. So one of the ideas was, can we just make it 2 units? So instead of one unit and ADU, we'll just have 2 units. I would suggest the community as a whole was not very excited about that idea. So, we had to think of ways to strategize. Maybe that went too far. So, our alternate approach at this point is you can still do 2 units, but you have to keep the existing unit. So you can't knock it down. So there's it's called like a housing preservation bonus. So that was like, trying to meet the neighborhood halfway, thinking through different strategies. So the contextual height graphic that I showed you in Richmond was because people were worried about 3-story houses, because that's what's allowed today. We didn't want to take that away, so we were suggesting 3-story houses. They didn't want to see 3-story houses in neighborhoods that had single-story houses. So under the proposal, you could just do a 2-story building if you're next to a 1-story building. So it's kind of like working through different options with people to try to get to a point where, there's a consensus. And then getting perspectives from a greater variety of people, right? So trying to talk to younger people There is typically a difference between more mature homeowners and younger renters who are trying desperately to figure out how to buy a house, and trying to hear from them as well so that it's part of the conversation.
Actually, that was my second question, is when you talk about representation, broad representation, and I liked how you keyed in on season ticket holders. That's really interesting because I'm a little bit more, I'll say, given my vocation, when it comes to surveys and things like that, scientific surveys matter a lot to me, not just the 30 people that had time to be aware and enter in the information on an online survey. There's always bias, and what I don't know, would be interesting, is what are the drivers of differences of opinion? Is it age? Is it income level? Is it neighborhood? Is it all of those things? But how do we, we always try to break people up into traditional categories, right? And sometimes that works when you're polling, like, hey, what sort of park features should we have? Can you do a survey on the things that you want in the community? And you can say, people over the age of 70 want this, people on the south side want that, and there's some, we're kind of just following prescribed ways of doing it in the past. But when it comes to zoning, it'll be interesting. And I don't know what your experience is with that, because I don't, every conversation's different, but I don't know. I think when you talk about getting that, like, what is scientific? How do you, who are the people?
One is getting the coverage for our team and for the city's sake, and being able to say, yes, we really did reach, all of these groups, and we have a broad sample that is actually meaningful. It's not just the same 30 voices that speak up. And I think collecting that broad data is crucial for our work, but then it's also how we feed it back out, create a feedback loop with residents and business owners and stakeholders, and kind of showing the human side of this, showing that, okay, it's you participated in this survey, so did your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
They had a different opinion than you, but you know them. And, kind of putting a face to the data points, and not just showing a bar chart and saying, well, 50% of people said this. And, so I think that that's a big a part of, having a wide variety of tools, the reporting that we do, having it be highly visual, kind of honoring the qualitative stuff. Maybe there's comments that are neither here nor there, and it doesn't fit into like an easy pie chart or something, but showing people that this is messy work, this is a civic project, people have all kinds of experiences and opinions, and sometimes there's contradictions, and we need to work through that together and be civil about it. So I think that, getting that wide coverage is not only important for the quality of the zoning project at hand, but also for getting buy-in from the community, and okay, maybe somebody is more willing to say, well, I will concede this point. I'm not going to get exactly what it is I want, but I understand that there are real neighbors, my neighbors, that have a valid point, and I'm willing to compromise on this. So I think that would be our goal, because it's always messy.
It is, and I think you often have people that are knowledgeable and that are interested that always skew regardless of demographics, and you have people that might not be knowledgeable, they can't answer that, like, they don't know, but they'll be impacted by it. And so how do you bring them in that they hear zoning, like, I don't know what that is, but I want more ice cream stores in my neighborhood? You know, like, how do you tee that up, you know, to make sure that people understand this isn't a big scary, it is messy, but, you know, your opinions matter even if you're not versed in what zoning is.
Right. Yeah. So that's where having a variety of tools, a flexible approach. So some people are going to be reached at the big meeting. Other people are going to be reached by the thing that you hand them on the sidewalk. Other people are going to go to, you know, a website or the Nextdoor page or whatever, and that's the way they're going to get to this. So just packaging this in this project in as many ways as possible to make sure that yeah, people can latch on in whatever way feels comfortable for them. I think that's important.
I mean, I think we found the most efficient way to reach people is to go to them and not necessarily expect people to come to us. So whether that's, you know, existing meetings, trying to piggyback on that kind of stuff. Yeah, and meet people in their settings. And, you know, as you can see in our presentation, we spent a fair amount of time thinking about how to reach people who wouldn't necessarily be interested in zoning. So the use of the psychographics to help tell the narrative that makes sense for them, or the zoning game, you know, that's going out to people and playing a game, trying to make it engaging so that people aren't intimidated. So ultimately, we're trying to empower people so that they feel like they know what we're doing, so they can tell us what they feel appropriately.
All right. Commissioner Douglas, did you have a question?
Yes?
Please.
So the City of Royal Oak has a communications director and a community engagement specialist, and they are very busy. And particularly with the need, as you've been describing to us, for lots of personal engagement, people taking surveys, people coming to charrettes, people participating. You got to get those people out. What do you do that minimizes the work that our staff has to do to make that happen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, doing this, for example, in the city of Detroit, where, yeah, they have a communications person, but, I mean, there's a million different things that are going out on all of these different channels. I think that, you know, being good communicators ourselves, having the graphic design chops, having the, you know, being able to write, you know, a nice blurb that's clear, you know, having all of those, you know, kind of like the project identity being clear, the messaging being clear, so that also the kind of like release strategy, all of that stuff. I think that we can take on a lot of that work so that the city communication persons doesn't have to you know, do a lot of tweaking or figuring. You know, it's basically, what is the channel that you have? Here is the thing. It's in the format that you use already. It's basically ready to go, and all you have to do is hit send and get it out. And, you know, and I think the more that we can talk to that person or that team in the beginning and understand this is the way that you reach people, here are the channels, these are the formats you use, then we can make sure that we're working with the existing templates and the, you know, understanding the timelines, who has to review things, how long of a, you know, lead time do you need before something is ready to go out to the public. You know, working with city governments is something that, you know, I understand that we want to make it easy for them to do their job, and when they're doing their job well, it means it's better for our work, and ultimately it's reaching people who need to see it. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? We got 2 minutes.
Gary.
What's that? You had a question?
You go ahead if you have one, Brian. Do you have a question? Okay. I guess my question is, can you walk us through the review process you anticipate Kerr Russell performing in the draft code? Specifically when that occurs, what portions they're going to review, and I guess most importantly, how the input interfaces with your planning team.
Well, we can figure out exactly when it makes sense. I mean, I think we kind of want to have him involved all along. But I think, the big piece of his review would be when we've got like a draft that is kind of being looked at by staff, but before it goes public, I think we would want to make sure that everything in there makes sense from a legal perspective. So right before the public review draft, he would do a legal review to kind of make sure it makes sense. I will tell you from previous projects, legal issues come up all the time within our work, whether it's like, can we do this? Can we do that? Signs, things like that. So we're in communication with our legal support at all times throughout the process.
So in the project timeline, we did put down a few formal periods where we look for that review during the drafting. But yeah, as Colin says, having Jim on the team will be really helpful just to ask questions along the way in case there's something that we're not sure about.
You had referenced one unique approach, which was your code audit. We've been doing a little bit of that since we adopted the master plan ourselves. It would certainly be great to have other professional eyes really give us an in-depth look. I think a legal, from a planning perspective, it's always good to have a planner review that. I think there's some critical legal elements in that code audit stage that would be invaluable to know that information up front. So it informs what the end product is, which you'll also be involved in.
All right, well, we are at the 1 hour mark, to be fair, so we're going to close the presentation. I'm going to thank everyone for being here. You guys appreciate all the information, appreciate you answering the questions.
Yeah.
I don't know what the next step is. The next step is public comment, but the next step for these presenters, they wait to hear from us. What do they do?
We have another special meeting tomorrow that starts at 6 o'clock with one more remaining firm. And then the Planning Commission will deliberate what they heard from all three of you and make a decision, a recommendation that will go to the City Commission for entering into contract.
All right.
So I'll keep in touch with all of you, all three firms, through that whole entire process.
All right.
I thought you had a whole swath of
Thank you so
consultants
much.
waiting out here to interview. So,
all right. Thank you
good to
very
hear.
much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to do public comment now. No. Okay, so we are opening the public comment section, and if there's a person out there in the audience who's in the public and would like to come up and speak on the issue of these two presenters, they should come up right now, Clyde. If you want to. Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing, and I guess we are now looking at adjourning, not closing, but adjourning this special meeting, I would think, yes? Because we're going to keep going tomorrow.
Well, there'll be a separate special meeting tomorrow. That's our
that's a
schedule
separate-
and process. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to adjourn this. We need
We're closing public comment only for today, though, because public comment.
It'll be a
another one
different
tomorrow.
meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. So, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion adjourned by Mr. Ellison, second by Commissioner Gantina. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. And the chair is going to call for a